Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TechGig webinars, our endeavor to empower techies. This December, TechGig is conducting webinar series on software project management. Today's session is the 10th in the series, and the topic for today is Metric Program for Release Predictability and Assessing the Project Health. We are delighted to have Mr. M.A. Narasimhamurthy, AVP and Process Head at Symphony Service Corporation Private Limited with us today. Mr. Murthy has 23 years of enormous work experience in the areas of process management operations and quality management with expertise in conceptualization and implementation of quality systems. He has thorough functional knowledge of business processes, having worked in several functions ranging from industrial engineering, process management, quality management, engineering function, process consulting, business process automation, ORG level program management, NPI to factory management in manufacturing and software industry. Mr. Murthy is a qualified assessor of Motorola quality systems and has achieved various certifications like SCI CMM level 5 and Motorola QSR. Gentlemen, this presentation will continue for next 45 minutes and we will take your questions after the presentation. In the meanwhile, you can post your queries through the chat pane available in the webinar software. We will also be asking questions related to today's topic. Please post your answers on techgig.com. Exciting gifts will be given to the participant who gives the best answer to the questions. Without further ado, I introduce you to our guest speaker, Mr. Murthy.
Yeah, thanks. Good afternoon. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, Mr. Murthy, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. So, what about screen? Are you able to see the screen?
It's visible. We can see your PPT.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Okay, thanks for taking for providing an opportunity to share our experience. And also, I would like to thank Keshav Kumar for working with me for last few days in putting together this program. Thanks, Keshav. Okay, and also I would like to welcome the participant of the webinar. I work at Symphony Services. We do outsource product development for our close to around 200 odd customers. We have got close to around 200 product lines, and we do around 1,000 plus releases in a year. Okay, whatever I'm going to talk, some of this experience, we have tested here, and it's yielding results. Based on that, I'm planning to share my experience with all of you. Okay, from this webinar, what you can expect. Basically, I'm going to talk about metric program, outer on metric program, relevancy of metric with respect to various stakeholders and with PDLC. Then apart from that, how to establish release predictable dashboards. Then I'll also cover challenges, and also I'll talk about when do we conclude metric program is successful. This will be the broad areas what I will be covering. Okay, I'll move on. Yeah, agenda. Basically, I'll talk about metrics. I've divided my presentation into 4 main themes. Okay, I'll talk about metrics and metric program. Then followed by, I'll talk about 9 steps for metric program deployment. As part of this subset, okay, I'll also talk about how do we predict the releases through metrics. Okay, this will be subset of 9 steps. Then also I'll talk about metric program challenges and when do we conclude the metric program successful. Okay, one key disclaimer I want to bring it up as part of my presentation. Okay, I'll not be covering any statistical prediction models here. If some of you have got such kind of expectation, I just wanted to set this expectation up front. I'll not be talking about any forecasting model or any other models. Okay, this is what I wanted to set the disclaimer up front. Okay, I'll move on Okay, if you look at the software metrics, okay, before we get into metrics, a process has got, for any process you need input and you've got set of activities that results in output. To measure this output, we use metrics. It's also called performance of the processes are determined through metrics. If you look at from the software metrics point of view, okay, different people have got different meaning and expectations from metric. Okay, if you look at some of them, they talk about project and effort and prediction and defect tracking, they call it as metrics. And some of them they go beyond, they look at test coverage, computer performance modeling, all those become subset of metrics, software metrics. If you look at a traditional process, okay, they talk about performance metrics. It's only more on process outcome. Whereas in the case of software metrics, it talks about software processes, product quality performance, and project key attributes also constitutes the software metrics. Okay, if you look at the software metrics, there are multiple classification of software metrics. Some of them they call it as project metrics and product metrics. Okay, this is more from CMMI parlance point of view. Okay, if, there are other school of thought which talks about predictive metrics, diagnostic metrics, and retrospect metrics. One more school of thoughts, it talks about lead metrics and lag metrics. And one more school of thought talks about influencing metric and impacting metrics. Okay, if you look at project metrics, okay, predominantly these schedule, effort metrics fall under this category. Product metrics refers to the software product. It could be defect or it could be code quality. All those things become subset of product metrics. And if you look at lead metrics, lead metric performance indicator are prospective in nature. For example, if you take the CSAT in customer satisfaction score and employee satisfaction scores, an employee satisfaction score can be a lead metric. CSAT can be a lag metric. Okay. This is a typical example. Okay, in the case of predictive metrics and diagnostic metrics, I'll be covering it in the next slide. This in broad, there are three types of metrics you will come across at the broad level. Okay, I'm moving on to next slide, which talks about metrics and risk. Okay, there are predictive metrics, diagnostic metrics, and retrospective metrics. If you look at, if you are working in a EOC kind of model, engineering outcome certainty, or fixed price project kind of model, or SLA based, okay, you would have made a lot of assumptions while putting together your solution or contract. Okay, we try to do an assessment with respect to the critical risk or dependencies or project complexities. Based on that, you identify a set of metrics and follow through the entire life cycle of the contract. Okay, that is called predictive metric. Here it is more of the preciseness. If you look at it, it's less precise because these are all more unrealized. There is no empirical formula here. It's more of preliminary based on speculation rather than empirical. Okay, whereas in the case of diagnostic metrics, okay, here you will use real-time informations from the systems. Systems could be, for example, defect management system or project management tool. Okay, it acts like a thermometer for measuring the performance of the project. Okay, for example, it could be on-time delivery or requirement stability. Index could be a few examples. I have given some high-level examples here. I am not restricted to only this. Okay, this is an indicative. With respect to retrospective, okay, post closure of the project, you will try to do a retrospect and look at what was the performance with respect to the assumption made and plan versus actual. Then you take these inputs for improving the future projects. Okay, that's why it's called retrospect metrics. In today's topic, I'll be covering more on diagnostic metrics. So how you can make use of this and assess the predictability of the release. Okay, if you look at metric program, it is tied to metric and it is tied to project health and it's tied to release predictions. The metric program provides outcome of the processes, that means results of the process performances. Using this, if the metric program is comprehensive, you can determine the project health. If you look at, okay, let's take the analogy of human body. Well, if you want to assess the health of a human body, you got set of parameters. You got temperature, you got blood pressure, you got sugar level, you got serum level, various parameters are there, heartbeat, various things are there. Okay. Similarly, when you are assessing the project health, you need to look at comprehensive measure. Okay. If you look at only few metrics, it will not indicate the right health. Okay. Based on this input, you can predict the releases. Okay. If you look at from sponsor's point of view or senior management of view, they look at whether my release will happen in as per the planned budget or whether it meets the expected the product quality or features. That's the overall expectation. That's why these three are very much linked to one another. To effectively manage your metric program, okay, you got three cornerstones. Okay, one, underlying process. Second one is tool. Third one is stakeholder involvement. Or you can start from the beginning, look at the stakeholders, and look at the processes, look at the tools. Okay, if these three gears are not working in tandem, okay, your metric program will not be successful. If you are not involving the right stakeholders, you may not get adequate support for running the metric program. Okay, you may be wondering what is meant by stakeholders. I'll be covering this topic maybe few slides later. Okay, in terms of stakeholder involvement, it's key because in the software industry, software processes are executed by human being. Okay, this human being, each one of them controls some key processes or key parameters. Okay, with respect to underlying processes, if you don't have process, a stabilized process, you may not get data. Okay, if you don't have underlying process or adherence, okay, it may not yield result. You may get variation in the outputs. With respect to tools, okay, as you are aware, the tools also play an important role in terms of process adherence. The slide what I'm showing to you, typically if you look at any CMMI organization, okay, they talk about the quantitative project management. Okay, this is the high level view of how they manage. Okay, here what you see here is, okay, this is more focused on organization business objectives. Okay, if you look at when a customer wants to partner with you, okay, he has got a critical business problem with you. Okay, that's why he will come and give business to you. The business problem what you are solving for them, it could be productivity issue, or it could be efficiency issue, or it could be product quality, or it could be he may not be meeting the release schedules, or he may be effort may be overrunning. Okay, this could be the fundamental 5 business problems, top 5 business problems you must be having. Then only you will try to outsource, or then only you will try to give a business to his partner. Okay, when we are talking about metric program, okay, we tend to miss this view. Okay, we tend to push a standard business objective, organizational business objective, or a standard schedule, effort, metrics to a program or a project. Coming back to the release predictability point of view, as I mentioned earlier, customer or executive or senior management, they expect each software release needs to be executed or released as per the predicted timelines or as per the committed timelines, as per the committed scope, as per the committed quality parameters, and as per the agreed budget. That means if you look at each of these parameters will play a major impact on the organization. Suppose if you miss the schedule of release, it may impact the revenue. If you miss the scope, that one also leads to a revenue impact. If you look at quality, this will help them. Okay, one is yes, it will directly help their customer satisfaction and revenue, but they also need to take some decision on with respect to investments. With respect to budget, okay, are we using the right budget? Prudent investment is there. Are we getting return on investment? Okay, these are all the parameters. It will play a major role, okay, in terms of senior management expectation and as well as on the organization. That's why predictability of software release is essential and key. I'll move on to next topic, which talks about 9 steps for metric program deployment. I'll quickly walk you through this slide. The step 1 is to identify your customer or stakeholder of the metric program. Step 2, understand and map their expectation and establish key objectives. Step 3, I'm going to introduce a concept called GQM approach. Then step 4, it talks about selection of metrics and establishing measurements, criteria and definition. Step 5, what needs to be done with respect to this. From here onwards, you will look at how part, basically doing as is process mapping, identifying data source, data collection mechanism, then owner of the data. Step 6 talks about sign off on metric definition, computing logic and reporting and all. Step 7 talks about reporting mechanism. 8, it talks about how to review this metric inputs, whatever dashboard you have established, how to assess. Then 9 talks about continual improvement of the program. I'll move on to slide 12. Okay, if you look at for a metric program, you got various stakeholders starting from a software engineer level to a senior management or customer level. Okay, that means you have got almost entire hierarchy of of any organization. They are part of the metric program. They expect clear definition. They expect the business vision based on this. They also look at how to de-risk if we have got some issues with respect to the program. When we are talking about deploying a metric program, if we miss to understand the expectations from each of the stakeholders, we may end up putting together, what you call partial metric program, which may impact the business, or we may miss the vision. That's why it's important to make sure that all stakeholders are involved and their expectations are met. When we are talking about metric program deployment, it's also important to know, okay, each of the stakeholders, what do they expect? Do they expect component level, or a project level, or a program level, or a business unit level metric? Okay, that also we need to keep in mind when we are talking about establishing a metric program. If you look at here, okay, this slide talks about varied needs of metric program. For example, project manager, you will be interested in knowing how can he control the project size, effort, resource, and budget. Whereas software engineer or a programmer, you will be interested in knowing about his work, quality of work, whatever he has produced, and also the productivity of his group. Whereas in the case of SQL or especially functions, it could be marketing or it could be finance, they will be interested in knowing how they can make use of this quantitative information for making decisions or for any other recommendations. Whereas in the case of customers or users, they will be interested in knowing whether they get their releases on time or as per the agreed acceptance criteria. As per the agreed acceptance criteria. Senior management, they are interested in more from budget management point of view, how they can make profit out of this project, or whether we will make the releases as predicted or as agreed. Okay, this will be their key needs. When we are putting together a metric program, we need to take inputs from all this, then arrive at a right set of expectations. Using this expectation, I'll move on to next slide, which talks about, here I want to spend a minute. Okay, if you look at here, okay, this slide talks about customer view of the measurement. Okay, if you take an example of an airline, okay, if they are, assume they are running some flights, okay, if you look at the measurement or the definition of the metric will vary. Suppose if you take on-time measurement of flight, okay, someone thinks that when they onboarded the flight, from that time onwards the on-time starts. In the case of airline, they may think that as soon as they issue the boarding pass, they think that that will be their starting point of on-time. Okay, or if you go to staff and talk to them, they may think that whenever flight has landed, when they started the operation, that could be their measure. That's why when we are looking at measurement, okay, it's important to get to know the customer's view. How do they want to measure? Taking that view, taking that input into account, and putting together a definition is key. I will introduce a new technique called in the stage or step 3. We will talk about goals. Okay, goals means okay. I'll introduce a technique called GQM, which is developed by Ashley. Okay, in 1990, he came up with an approach called GQM, which talks about goal questioning metric technique. Okay, basically, what it talks about is based on the customer expectations, you have identified a set of goals. Okay, this involves products or processes or resources related goals. Okay, you will, based on the inputs, you will articulate the goals. Then you will go back and question how to operationalize this. What kind of measurements we should have? Okay, you may have for each goal you may have some 3, 4, or 5 answers. Okay, based on that you will try to put together to monitor to address those questions. What kind of measurements, what kind of metrics we should have? Okay, that's why it's called goal questioning metrics. Based on this, when you question yourself, you will identify set of parameters, set of metrics what you should have for monitoring the overall goals. Okay, using this, okay, if you take similar approach, okay, let me summarize here. Okay, we talked about identifying the stakeholder. We talked about identifying their expectations. From there, we will do analysis. What kind of key expectations, common expectations they have. Then you will identify, based on that you will define the goals for the project. Then you will take that input and you will apply GQM. based on the GQM, you will come up with the measurements. Okay, you have completed step 3 now. Now you have done the step 3. When you are concluding, it's important to know that there are few other factors also influence the metric selection. So one is you need to understand the product development lifecycle maturity, and also you need to understand, we talked about business problems. Okay, what are you trying to solve for your client? Then you also need to look at what kind of project you are running. Have you signed up a fixed price project? Have you signed up a TM, time and material, or something else? Or is there a SLA based contract you signed? You also need to look at, is there any contractual commitment? Okay. Then you also need to look at, okay, are you doing full product development for them, or are you doing only some portion of, or you may be doing only QA? You need to look at with respect to the type of engagement as well. Then apart from that, the methodology, the process methodology what you use for developing this product is also important. Are you using agile or iterative or waterfall? That one also will play a key major role in influencing the metric selection. I'll move on to next slide, which talks about, I used a terminology called PDLC, product development life cycle. Okay, if you look at the product development has got 4 phases, okay, of its life. Basically, it has got intro phase, then growth phase, and maturity phase, and decline phase. If you look at from the client point of view, there, when they are introducing their new product, for them, there are certain key drivers. Basically, they talk about, taking the product as per the timeline. Okay, that will be their key expectation. Then, as a part of this, they look at meeting the milestone is key. They also focus on project metrics, and they also, here you will have too much of requirement volatility. They are also very keen on release management. Okay, this will be their key drivers. When they move on to enhancement, here they are more interested in bug fixes, new features adding, whatever bugs reported from the field. That will be their key, focus. Then also they look at adding new features, okay, in the growth phase. Okay, you may be wondering why I'm talking about this. Okay, when you want to identify set of parameters, you also need to look at what will be the focus for your client. What will be is the influencing factors for your client. That will be the key parameter when you are selecting the metrics. Similarly, in the mature stage, okay, you will have customer issue tracking. That will be the key parameter. Here you look at more from the service delivery metrics point of view. How many L1 tickets you are getting, L2 tickets you are getting, and L3 you are getting. Is it in 60-30-10 pattern, or is it more? Are you getting more L1, L3 ticket? Okay, some of these things it will play a key role. When it comes to decline phase, okay, here you will try to do, you will not invest more, okay, and the organization may not be willing to invest more because it is in a decline path. They will try to do some innovative measures. They will try to do some small enhancement, that too if customer pays. So some of these parameters you need to make use of it while identifying metrics. You identify the metrics. Now you need to, we are moving on to how part. Before moving on to how part, it is important to do as is process mapping. That means you need to go back and look at the complete end-to-end business process transaction of your software delivery. Okay, software delivery process you need to map and look at how each of these processes are interlinked. This will play a major role when you are identifying the data source and all. Okay, if you look at in a software product development, you may use more than 10 to 12 tools. Okay, one of the problem today, okay, wherever they are using a what you call ALM platform, it will be very easy for them. They can in one platform, all these tools are connected. You can extract data, and from there you can arrive at a dashboard. If you have a standalone tools, standalone processes, okay, you will have a major challenge of collecting the data from these tools. And also, each of these tools has got a different process owners. Okay, for example, if you look at QA, okay, the tester may be a process owner for this tool. A test automation, an automation guy may be a process owner. Whereas in the case of project management, a project manager will be the owner. Okay, when you are managing a release, you need to get data from all these guys to arrive at a meaningful conclusions on metrics. That's where most of the organizations fail in putting together a metric program. Okay, based on these tools, you need to look at how to extract data, where to put, where to dump it. Okay, so typical data collection issues are how and when, and also who will collect, and also how to validate, where to store, and how to secure. Okay, these are all some of the perennial problems what we have seen and what we have come across. And also, whether to collect the data at the module level, or at the project level, or at the release level. Some of these questions will arise, based on the size of the project, based on the size of the release. You need to answer some of these questions, then start mapping, okay, for each of these metrics what you have identified already, okay, from where to pick the data. Now I will move on to release predictability through metrics. Okay, if you look at the release predictability, okay, it has got 5 pillars. Okay, these 5 pillars are connected to one another. Okay, and also if you look at the metrics are outcome of the process. The health of the process can be judged by the trends. Okay, so if you try to pull schedule, it may impact product quality. If you try to push more features, it may impact schedule. Okay, like it is, you can't look at these parameters in isolation. That's why you need to look at a composite measure of looking at all these parameters together. If you look at this is a busy slide, I will spend few seconds. If you look at project management is overlay on the software development processes. There is no way a software process can be controlled during the development phase. All software controls are inspection based. Hence, the need of prediction by studying the variation of intermediate steps is essential. Okay, if you look at in a manufacturing processes, input variables of the process can be controlled to ensure the process performance is under control. In software, input variables are complex and subjective and cannot be controlled. For example, code quality depends on the person competency, understandability of design document, concentration of the developers during development. Various parameters are there. Okay, that's why it's very important, okay, to look at all these parameters together. Okay, and apart from that, if you look at this slide talks about how each one of them are interlinked. Okay, for example, code quality, rework, how it impacts one another. Okay, that's why the web of software metrics needs to be looked at in totality or in a what you call integrated manner. So I'm moving on to next slide, which talks about cone of uncertainty. So when you are putting together a metric program, it's also important to know that okay, you will have maximum uncertainty during the initial stage of the project. When you pass through, okay, as I mentioned in the previous slide, if you try to pull product quality, your schedule will suffer. If you try to pull your schedule, your product quality or productivity may suffer. Okay, or you may end up doing some rework. Okay, that's why in a software project, okay, this picture clearly depicts that, okay, you will have more uncertainty during initial stages of the period. When you pass through this tunnel and reaches toward the end, okay, you will have more certain what you call size or the certainty will be more in terms of completing the project. Okay, that's what I wanted to communicate from this. Okay, if you look at the metrics also in the beginning, okay, you may have few metrics. Okay, then as soon as you pass through various phases of your software development, by the time it comes to release, you may have close to around 20 odd metrics. That means it's also important, metric selection. You can't do it only in the beginning of this one. It has to, you need to look at the entire life cycle, and accordingly you need to plan. Okay. I'll move on to how we predict. Okay, these are some of the key metrics we have identified. We use these parameters to assess the overall predictability. When I talk about quality, okay, in the next slide, I'll use a radar chart which talks about predictability, how we predict. Okay, we have got set of parameters underneath. Okay, we use this one concept called project box, a release project box, which talks about it is built based on the Stephen Covey. For a customer, okay, he may be very keen on getting the product as early as possible. That means schedule may be a topmost priority for him. That means important and urgent for him. Whereas quality may be second criteria for him. Or it could be productivity may be a second criteria. Or effort can be a second criteria. For him, getting the product out on schedule may be one such kind of condition. Okay, you need to look at when we are building the release predictability model, the weightages can be attached based on the project box, or from the client perspective, what is important for him, you can give weightage. Okay, if you look at here, okay, I talked about in the previous slide what kind of matrices, measurements we should have. That will get consolidated. If you take quality, okay, in the previous slide I've got more than 7-8 parameters. The 7-8 parameters gets accumulated, okay, here, and you will arrive at a quality score. Similarly, okay, for schedule or effort, we make use of similar kind of assessment. We come up with aggregate score. So the left hand side, what you see, a thermometer which indicates the overall release, the project health of the program. Okay, it clearly indicates that yes, with the current state, okay, we are likely to meet the release date. That's what it indicates. That means it's green. Okay, so I'll take one more example. If you look at in this slide, okay, examples which talks about assume, okay, you'll start seeing a increased trend of defects over a period of time. Okay, that means this impacts your schedule because you need time to fix the defects whatever is reported, and also it may take a hit on the effort as well. Okay, that's why you will see, okay, in this particular case we are likely to miss schedule date and we are likely to overrun the effort. Okay, that's the message you can draw from here. Okay, similarly, if you take another example, so one of the key resource has left, okay, that you will take a hit on the productivity, and also you will likely to miss the schedule. Okay, Here what we have done is we have used some of the empirical formulas. Okay, we have created our own release dashboards, and we make use of this dashboard for assessing the predictability of the release. Similarly, okay, say you have done a wrong estimations. Okay, that means you are burning more effort, and as well as you are likely to miss schedule. That means based on the assessment of the matrices and through this release predictable dashboard, it's very clear that we are likely to miss the release timelines. We are likely to miss the effort what we have planned. That means this input helps the management in taking appropriate corrective actions. It could be deploying more resource or going back and talking to client, negotiating the release timelines. That's how it helps. Okay, one is it helps in predicting whether whatever we have envisaged in the beginning, whether it will happen or not. Okay, and also it helps in making decisions. So coming back to, I'm in step 8, which talks about metric reviews. It's also important to know, okay, that the metric frequency will vary based on the phases of your product development or software development. During beginning of the stage, you may have a milestone based and monthly based reviews. When you move on to design and coding, you will start doing project reviews on a fortnightly or a weekly basis. When it comes to testing stage, you will start looking at this release dashboards on a daily basis. So this will help in looking at defect triage, maybe last 1 or 2 weeks of the release. Okay, you will do a daily reviews. I am on step 9, which talks about continuous improvement. Basically, here also we are approaching PDCA manner and basically looking at what went right, what didn't go well. Take this inputs maybe for future release, or if you want to do retrospects and improve. Okay, that's where it helps. I'll move on to some of the challenges and support needed. Basically, if you look at based on our experience, so if you look at resistance to transparency is one of the key issue what we have noticed. Okay, the delivery team side or project management team side, somehow they don't want to have a transparent view of the program. Okay, that that will be the topmost challenge. Then second one is you must be having excellent metric program. If project manager, if he is not able to interpret data and if he is not able to address data integrity issues, you will have challenges. Third one is, since we use more than 10 to 12 tools, it's also important to know how to extract data, how to use right data field. Okay, for example, if you are handling a support, product support activity, okay, in the product support you will come across, if you take any standard tool set, you will come across 25 to 50 fields. Okay, you need to know which field to use for what. Okay, if you want to compute response or resolution time, what field to use. Okay, you need to be very clear about using right field. And also generating trust with PMs and measurement is also one more key challenge. Okay, since he doesn't want to have a transparent view of the matrices, he may not encourage putting together a metric program. Then these days we have a concern with respect to data interpretation and arriving at proper conclusions, because everything is done by Excel. People are missing the fundamentals. Okay, the ability of the qualitative to interpret data is one more challenge what we have seen, not only quality team, including the project teams. The next one is, if you don't have automated processes, if you are doing everything manually, only you got few tools is to manage your software product development, then also you'll have challenge of data collection and putting together a dashboard. Apart from that, you also need to look at the management or the organizational support in terms of quantitative approach. Definitely you need their buy-in. They also need to review. They need to do a periodic review. They also need to see a value, recognize the value add from the metric program while solving the problems. Okay. This is what in nutshell, with respect to challenges and support. Okay, and also I want to bring two more points here. If you want to put together a metric program, you need to have a customer. The customer can be internal or customer can be external. If you don't have a customer, don't put metric program. It will not. It's expensive and it will be wasteful also. Someone need to look at the data. Someone need to act on it. Okay. Then apart from that, also it's important to involve customer and their expectation upfront. So when do we call this metric program successful? Basically, when delivery teams start using this data, and they also start making progress or taking corrective actions. Okay, and also your customer are accepting the your performance and as well as performance measurement system. Okay, and also your metric program needs to be tied to the business goal, as we mentioned earlier. Okay, in nutshell, okay, if you have this, then your metric program will be successful. Okay, that's what I wanted to talk in terms of key takeaways. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, the metrics are outcome of process. Using this metrics, you can assess the health of your the project, and also you can act on it. And the software processes are highly dependent on another. Okay, it's as I mentioned earlier, it's a web of metrics. You need to look at. Okay, no single metric can reflect the single health of the project. You need to look at composite way of measuring. We have used some of these composite measurements, and it's helping us in predicting the releases. Then also the relevancy of metrics needs to be looked at from the product life cycle. Don't apply standard yardstick of measurement for product development. And also it's important to look at intermediate process steps which generate lead metrics and also helps you in assessing the performance. One important key takeaway I want to drive home: do not measure individuals, and also never use metric as a stake and start hammering the people using these metrics. If you start doing this, then people will not support your metric program will fail. And also make sure that people are part of your journey, and collective review of this data, and collectively putting together feedback or corrective action or improvement program will help. Using this, you can make metric program successful. That's what I wanted to communicate. Okay, now I'll hand over back to Keshav and team.
Questions are already shared with you, so please take those questions.
Okay, I'll just give me a minute. Yeah, okay, there is a question from, I think, what are the tools can be used to capture the metrics values as well as generating reports and charts? So what we have done is, internally, we have created a data warehouse. Okay, we use a reporting tool called Team Effective Analyzer. Okay, there are standard charting tools, reporting options also available. But in Symphony, what we have done is we have created our own internal tool, okay, which goes back and extracts data from defect management or project management tool. Okay, and from there we put together a dashboard. Okay, I hope I have answered Ram's question. Give me some names of good tools for getting different metrics. Okay, that's what we internally we have used. Okay, for example, if you look at Jira, if you are using Jira for defect management and project management or issue tracking, they use this one called Green Hopper. Okay, a Green Hopper provides a project management panel. Through this, you can manage your metrics. What are the tools that can be used to capture the metric values as well as generating the reports and charts? So I talked about, one is you can extract the data from various tool sets and create a data warehousing, or it could be parking the data somewhere. From there, picking up the data and charting. Okay, that will help. In some of the cases we don't use highly automated tools. We make use of Excel. Okay, from there we put together, we dump the data into Excel. We write some scripts, and on a weekly basis we take the data and put it in Excel. From there, we have used some of the VB scripts. Using this, we are able to create some charts or dashboards. You said if the customer is not interested, okay, you said if the customer is not interested, then metric program is not required. But then if you still want to show the productivity and effort, okay, I talked about two things. One is, when I talked about customers, if you don't have customer, don't have metric program. Yes, when you're talking about customer, it could be internal customer. I am sure your project manager or your senior management, they want to have a metric program so that they can predict. What is full form of UOL? EOC I mentioned, engineering outcome certainty. Okay, this is one of the new what you call framework most of the companies they are using. Okay, instead of signing up time and material projects, what they do is they go back and commit the performance outcomes to the end client. Based on that, they sign the contract and make sure that the outcomes are met. That's called EOC, engineering outcome certainty. Yes, as I mentioned, okay, I've got one more question on release board process should have shown will be different for agile method. Yes, I agree. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, okay, when you are selecting the metric or dashboard design, okay, you need to look at the what kind of methodology use. If you are using agile, we will use a different dashboard. What I've shown is for iterative and waterfall. Okay, there is one question on on slide 28 or 30. How is the weightage decided? Okay, so basically I talked about a project box. Okay, here we use some of the learnings from Stephen Covey's 4-quadrant theorem, and basically it talks about urgent and important for our client. Based on that, we whatever is urgent and important, it takes higher weightage, and rest of the parameters based on our experience we use the weightage. can you give me some real life example of using metrics to predict delays in design or coding, etc.? Yeah, as I mentioned, okay, we make use of this, metrics starting from the initiation phase. Okay, we follow through, we keep adding some of the parameters, through the life cycle. For example, for design and all, we make use of a design scorecard to assess the health. Okay, similarly for coding and all, we have got some coding instruments. Okay, we run a program on Symfony standard adaptation. Okay, this has got some of the code quality assessments and tool sets. We make use of this code quality tool assessments and assess the code quality. Okay, for a Java kind of things, we make use of Sonar. Okay, this provides a comprehensive view of the code quality. For design and all, we make use of design scorecard. It's internally created. How do you think about open source project management tools versus conventional project management methods? Yes, we in some of the cases we make use of open source project management tools, as long as it provides data for you in terms of taking out the dump and you are able to use the data. No problem, we can use. Okay, here someone asked me a question about how do we measure product metrics like number of lines and all. Okay, here we have got some of the what you call code counter tools. Using this you can some of the freeware tools are available. Using that you can deploy as part of this configuration management tool. From there you can arrive at how many new lines are added, how many lines got deleted, and how many tools, how many lines are modified. Using this tool you can arrive at, and also here also we have developed some empirical formula to arrive at the productivity of developer. So someone has asked me a question on for 12 months of effort, what would be the additional effort required for the metric program? Okay, if you ask me, we are able to put together a metric program within 3 to 4 man days of effort is required. Basically someone need to go back and look at doing a process mapping and identifying the data source and putting together some Excel based dashboard. It's possible within 3-4 days. And sustenance can be part of your regular project management effort. If you look at project management effort may vary from 10 to 12%. This could be a subset of that. Yeah, someone asked me a question on staff augmentation that for interest of time I'll respond to you later. Yes, we do have for staff augmentation also we have got set of parameters. We make use of that as well. I hope I answered almost all questions. Yeah, Keshav, I've answered most of the questions. If there are any other questions, I'll be happy to answer. I'll hand over the mic back to you.
There are a few more questions. I just shared with you.
Okay. Okay. Someone has asked me what is UL? It's end of life. Okay. Someone has asked a question on how do we run metric program for short-term program for 3 to 4 months where delivery is concerned? Okay, here you need to look at what will be the key expectation. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, okay, you need to look at what is key for your client. Okay, if your schedule is key, okay, I'll focus more on schedule and product quality. Okay, you can't you can't ignore product quality even if it is short term. Excel could be flexible, but it is not a little unstructured and difficult to share. Is it a comment or is it a question? Yeah, you can make use of Excel. Using that, if required, you can transfer the data or you can protect and share it with your clients. Yeah, in Symphony, yes, we make use of. Someone asked me, okay, in Symphony, how's metric products? Excel dashboard. Yes, we have both version. There's automated version, for a bigger, accounts, we make use of automated dashboard. For smaller ones or short-term ones, we make use of Excel-based ones.
We have answered all the questions, so now we can conclude this session.
Yes. Yeah. If there are any questions, please feel free to send it to me. I'll be happy to help. Okay, if there are no more questions, I would like to thank Keshav for organizing this, Keshav and Tech team. Okay, thanks for giving me an opportunity to share my experience with the team. Okay, then apart from that, I also want to thank Prasad, who has introduced me to Prasad Prabhakaran, who has introduced me to Keshav for running this program, and also some of my team members helped me in putting together this presentation. I would like to thank them as well. Okay, I just now got one question: what kind of metric can be RL difference? Okay, this I said I'll respond separately. That's it. Thank you very much. Keshav, over to you.
Thanks, Mr. Murthy, for your informative session on metric program for release predictability and assessing the project health. It was indeed an enlightening session. I would also like to thank our participants for their support in making this webinar a huge success. The recording of this webinar will be available on techgig.com by tomorrow. The next session in the webinar series is happening tomorrow, that is 23rd December at 3 p.m. Topic for tomorrow's webinar is Code Walkthrough using MongoDB with Java. We will be having Mr. Vipin Vindal, Assistant Manager, Technology at Times Business Solution Limited as our guest speaker. So see you all tomorrow at 3 p.m. Have a nice day. Thank you.